Since we've been, I'm Carol Barton. I'm with United Methodist Women. We're housed in this building and make this building available to the global women's movement during these weeks. And this is Elmira Nazombe, who is also with United Methodist Women. As we've been thinking about this and thinking, okay, what happens when there are crises in the world that affect whole regions, whole nations, the whole globe? What does it mean when for those crises if we start thinking about women who carry multiple identities that are listed up here? How do those crises affect these women differently? And in many cases, in much more intense ways, because they carry multiple vulnerabilities or identities. And as I've been doing it, it's just been jumping out at me everywhere that the crises and then the response, the policy responses, if they ignore those women with these multiple vulnerabilities, those women are going to get completely left out of the response. So I think at the bottom of this, if we're talking about advancing the Beijing Platform for Action and advancing the Millennium Development Goals, which is the agenda of our gathering here, and we forget the women who live at these intersections, they're going to get left behind. There isn't a monolithic woman out there for the Beijing Platform. And so what we're going to do in the groups, and that's going to be the bulk of our time because we want you to talk and we want you to tell your stories and experiences. You'll do a lot of listening to a lot of panels this week. This is your time to be sharing and to be building the analysis together in your groups. Is to invite a few stories, 2 or 3 perhaps, that about a woman who is experiencing one of these major crises that we're confronting that are obstacles to fulfillment of the Beijing Platform. We're living through an economic and financial global crisis. We're experiencing already the impact of climate change. Yesterday we read that in Uganda there were mudslides that buried the better part of a village. This has to do with intensification of the rains, but it also the impact had to do with the fact that poor people had been moving up into the hills in order to find land that they didn't have access to. So those were the people who were wiped out. So there are disasters caused already by climate change that are impacting people. We know that there's intensification of war and conflict, which are often resource wars in the Great Lakes of Africa, in Colombia, in Mindanao, certainly in the Middle East, where women with these vulnerabilities are particularly at risk. And then there are disasters like an earthquake in Haiti or Chile that may be a natural disaster, but the way it affects people is completely unnatural. So if you can think of a story, an example, in one of those categories, recognizing that those are all interrelated, that they're not separate. And then let's think about how these words around the room, the identities that woman may carry, intersect. And let me give you an example or two. Some of us got to hear the Social Watch Dawn session yesterday, and we heard from Nargal Geneva of Kyrgyzstan, who said that women had, in terms of the economic crisis, women had been one of the most vibrant parts of their economy in creating small businesses, and women were losing those businesses because of the crisis. So the policy response of the state was to do a stimulus package to provide credit, but it was men that were getting the credit for that. Now, that's not intersectional because I'm not sure. She didn't say whether those were also people of oppressed racial identity or poverty. I think we could probably, if we did some digging, find out that those people would be more at risk. Marina Durano of Dawn talked about the fact that in Asia, in response to the crisis, thousands of women in the garment and shoe industries in Vietnam and other parts of Asia have lost their jobs due to the crisis. States, in response, she said, primarily are doing public infrastructure, public works, like building bridges, And so men are getting the jobs from the stimulus for the bridge building. Those were some examples, and I think one that's very much on our mind is the earthquake in Haiti. And the fact that there's a story today in the New York Times that in response, the United Nations and aid agencies have not been doing enough to listen to Haitians and to women's groups on the ground in terms of what the needs are. And so there aren't needs that are specifically addressed to women's needs. There's an increase of rape in the camps. There's a lack of access channeled through women to the larger community because of the roles that they play. So the things that we're going to ask you to struggle with is what is one of these crises that's happening, and then what does it mean for this woman who lives with multiple identities. It might be yourself, it might be somebody that you know, or somebody that you know of in your country.
Yeah, just one little comment. We have some sisters here who are going to help tell the story outside of the kind of conversations that we're having. And so they're going to be listening in groups and moving about. So if you see people moving, that's who they are. If there's something that you want to say in your group that you don't want to be heard outside this room, just make that clear. But it's wonderful to have sisters who have that talent and can help tell the story broadly. So we think it's important that we try to provide that opportunity for them, okay? So yeah, we wanted to have 40 minutes, so we're going to try to have 40, but we'll have at least 35. At 35, I'll tell you, we got 5 minutes left. You have some markers and paper, so any way in which you want to try to record some important parts of your conversation, draw pictures of what the women that you want to focus on looks like, what her situation is, and your commentary about policy can also go on the paper. And then we'll quickly have a way in which we get a chance to have them on the wall for a moment before we have to take them down, okay? So get started. It's going to be fun.